Hi there, good noon and what's up? So the CAT 23 aspirants, जल्दी से मुझे बताओ यार तैयारी कैसी चल रही है, अच्छी नहीं चल रही तो कहां अटके हुए हो, क्या पेन पॉइंट है? So those of you preparing for CAT 23, just tell me quickly how your preparation is shaping up. And in case you are not happy with your preparation, just drop in your pain points in the chat window below and I will try to answer them. Or if those pain points are big, if they deserve an entire separate session, we'd be more than happy to bring it to you so that your preparation at this channel can be customized, because that is what we always aim at. So I welcome you to BYJU'S Exam Prep channel dedicated to your success as a B School aspirant. My name is Vikrant. I am your personal coach for all things related to English and communication skills. I occasionally also talk about the psychological aspects of preparation, and I hope that you benefit from all of these things. So guys, कैसी चल रही है हमारी तैयारी? So when you start preparing, you always have this constant thing in your mind, right? And that is the CAT exam. That's usually the focus area for most of us, and barring NMAT and occasionally SNAP, I think most of the exams also come after the CAT, and therefore that automatically becomes the de facto focus area. So you and I happen to have, or we at least need to have a look at this calendar. So November of 2023, there is this one date that I'll circle, 26th. So that is going to be the most likely date for CAT 23, and that is the day by which you want to be absolutely 100% ready to take on the world, take on the CAT, at least if not the world, right? And on 26th of November, and I'm saying 26th because CAT usually takes place on the last Sunday of November. The notification is not out. So is there a guarantee that will be on 26th? Not really, but until the notification comes out, which will be sometime in July, this is the date that you and I are going to focus on. And on this particular date, when you enter the examination hall to write the CAT, what exactly is going to be your goal? Your goal and my goal for this particular day is 99 percentile plus. Our performance should be such that we should belong to that elite category of the top 1% people who have appeared for that exam, because that is where magic starts happening. That is where you are likely to get a call from some of the most sought after colleges in the country. Although if you are an engineer, I'd suggest that you sorry, I suggest that you treat it as 99.3 percentile, because that's where this magic starts happening for you as an engineer. Shweta Rane says CET re-exam. Shweta, CET re-exam will primarily happen for a very small set of people. So those who faced technical issues during the exam thus could not complete it. So it happened at some centers, and those who accidentally, those non-PWD category students who accidentally got 180 minutes, they are the ones who are going to appear for the exam again. If you're one of those individuals, I'd say tough luck, yaar, but such is life, right? So please make sure that you do focus on the upcoming CET exam and then write it really very well. But for the rest of us, 99 percentile plus in the CAT exam is our goal, and in order to get that, we need to prepare ourselves for different things. So the four commonest things that we all prepare for are quant, DI, LR and verbal, right? So no matter which exam you write, these are the four things that you definitely face. And then those of you who are like, really serious and are looking at the entire selection process holistically and are targeting even those exams which are non-CAT, then there are two more areas that your chances are that you're focusing on, and they are general knowledge and decision making. Decision making especially for ZAT, right? There is an entire section on it. So make sure that you just ace this area until then. So that's what your focus as an aspirant is. But today in this session, I am going to focus on VARC, and we talk about how can we get 99 percentile plus here in this particular section when the exam day comes around. So that's going to be our focus. So let me quickly give you a brief history of the last 5 years of the CAT exam, particularly the English section. So when I talk about VARC in the CAT, in 2018 and 19, we had 34 questions in the VARC section for both of these years. But then, 2020 COVID, the pandemic stuck, the IMs had to increase the number of slots. So the duration, which used to be 3 hours, was cut down to 2 hours. And that also reflected in the total number of questions given. So English in 2020, the English section had 26 questions. And then in 21 and 22, the examiners spared that further, reduced that further, and we had 24 questions for both of these years. So in all probability, we should expect the same composition to continue the next year, which essentially means that you are likely to get 24 to 26 questions. Although I am leaning a little more towards 24, considering that in 2020 they had to take this decision at a very short notice, but then they had a good 1 year to think it through, and they brought it down to 24 subsequently. And then they stuck with that in 22. So I think 24 is a more likely number of questions for English, but then let's just treat it as a range. So 24 to 26. So it is in this paper that you want to get 99 percentile. And in order to get that 99 percentile, how many marks do you need to score? Anybody? How many marks do you need to score? So here is the analysis of the last 5 years of marks versus percentile. Okay. So let me just fix this once. Until then, you can share your guess with me. What do you think is the likely number of marks that you need to score in order to get a great rank? What's your guess going to be? So marks versus percentile over the course of last 5 years. But when you compare these, different years had different total number of marks. So for CAT 18 and 19, the total marks were 102. For 2020, it was 78. And for these 2 years, the total marks were 72. Right? And since I've said that this 24 question section is the most likely section, let's just focus on this. So if I isolate the last 2 years of the CAT exam and then look at marks versus percentile, something really nice, something really amazing comes out, that if you want to get 99 percentile, if you want to in a way be in the top 1%, be in that elite category, then in 22 you needed 38.5 marks. Now the marking scheme in the CAT is +3 for every right question and -1 for every question that you get wrong. But then we know that the exam also happens to have some non-MCQs. In the English section, parajumbles, 3 questions of parajumbles are non-MCQs. There, if you get them right, there is +3, and even if you get them wrong, there is no penalty. So that's 0. So if you want to be in the top 1%, then in CAT 22, you needed to basically get 13 net corrects. So if you could somehow get 13 questions net correct, you would have been in the top 1%, whereas in 21, that number was 15. This also tells you that CAT 22 was comparatively tough. Right? Now, are you going to get all of your questions right? Are you going to get all of your questions right? That's a little unlikely, right? I'd say that we may not get all of our questions right. So basically, let's work with this assumption that you prepare really very well and go on to get 90% accuracy, 80% accuracy. So keeping this particular assumption in mind, if you attempt 18 questions with an 80% accuracy, you would definitely cross this level. So I'm saying that our aim is to get attempt around 18 to 20 questions with 80% accuracy, and you'd be in the top 1%. So today, I believe, even if I were to give you the CAT exam today and you have 40 minutes to go through 24 questions, if you focus on getting just 6-7 questions right, you'd say, I'm not even going to attempt 75% of the section. Even then, you are going to be in the top 20%. Imagine, even then you would have 80 percentile. So now the game is from today to 26th of November, a little more than 7 months. We need to take this number of 6 questions to 18 questions. We need to prepare so that we can get 12, so that we can attempt 12 more questions with hopefully an accuracy rate of 80% and above. And if you can go ahead and attempt 20 questions somehow with 80% accuracy, where will you be? In an exam like CAT 22, you would have been easily in the top 0.5% of the aspirants. So 18 to 20 questions, guys. And that when the exam is difficult, when it is not so difficult, you can actually go ahead and attempt even more and perhaps get even more of them right. So how do we go ahead and prepare so that we are able to reach that juncture, reach that level? So how do you prepare? So far you've attempted a lot of exams in school, in colleges. What is the first thing that you do when you start your preparation? Anyone? You know what I do when I start my preparation? The very first thing that I look at is the syllabus. I mean, if I don't even know the syllabus, how would I go ahead and prepare? And mind you, there have been a couple of years in my college life when I probably lost my focus. So I used to look at the syllabus and then I used to think of, acha, kya cheezein chhod dein? What all areas can be left out? And then I would prepare the rest. But then when it comes to a competitive exam, this is not going to be the right approach. We would ideally not like to leave anything out in English because you never know which areas get asked in the exam, right? So once you know the syllabus, you need to start your preparation. But then what would you or what should you start with? Which topics and which chapters to do first? Which topics and which chapters to do later? That's going to be the next call, right? Or in other words, we would like to figure out the sequence in which you want to go through all the chapters. And once these two things are in place, just get going. Of course, it is easier to say that get going would require time management. It requires superior habits. It requires discipline. So a lot of mental aspects do come into picture. But as far as planning goes, until you have these three things sorted, you may not even reach that far. So let us go ahead and know the syllabus, figure out the sequence, and then get going. So to begin with, when it comes to VARC in the CAT, what all gets asked? So in the CAT exam, you basically get two things: reading comprehension, which can be as much as 67% of the section, and then the remaining questions belong to verbal ability, and that's basically it. So let's focus on the last 3 years of paper pattern. In 2020, English section had 26 questions out of a total of 76 questions, right? Out of these 26 questions, 18 questions belonged to reading comprehension, whereas the remaining 8 questions came from parajumbles, para summary and paragraph odd one out. In 21, the pattern changed slightly, and instead of 26 questions of English, we had 24. But then you notice that the overall number of questions went down from 76 to 66. An overall reduction of 10 questions, but in the English section, we lost only 2 questions. That increases the weightage of the English section in the exam. And out of these 24 questions, 16 were RC and the remaining 8 were verbal ability. So we had 4 passages with 4 questions each. And then in 22, the overall composition remained the same. We still had 24 English questions out of a total number of 66, but then a topic changed. Instead of odd one out, we had paragraph completion. So there was just this tiny little change. So if you look at it superficially, you would say that, okay, I need to prepare for just 4 things, or rather 5 things, right? Reading comprehension, para jumbles, para summary, para completion, and the one on the previous slide, paragraph odd one out. But then in reality, that's not entirely true. If you look at your preparation plan for English, you'd realize that RC and VA are the tip of the iceberg, and then there are things that form the base. So think of your English prep as an iceberg or a pyramid, where RC and VA are the visible parts. You see this in the CAT exam. The other 3, you don't see them, but then they are very much required to excel at RC and VA, particularly verbal reasoning, because that's going to be the foundation of the entire section. Anybody who's not that great at verbal reasoning is unlikely to do very well at English. And then of course, vocabulary, which is more of a knowledge-based area. A bit of vocab never hurts. Grammar is another knowledge-based area. And then of course, you have RC and VA, where RC is predominantly a skill and VA is predominantly a technique-based area, because all the relevant knowledge that you acquire is acquired from the areas below. Okay, so let us as a result begin by talking about verbal reasoning. So because it is the foundation, I very strongly recommend that you become absolutely solid at verbal reasoning. The very first thing that I want you to do is this area called syllogism. Now, a lot of you may look at it and say, why syllogism? Well, see, you need reasoning for the English section. Syllogism is a nice entry-level area that teaches you the basics of reasoning. And additionally, a lot of other exams, okay, you talk about NMAT, IIFT, Maharashtra CET, a lot of other exams actually also happen to have syllogism-based questions, so you'd benefit from this. So in a way, my core purpose of starting with syllogisms is to introduce you to the world of reasoning so that you learn to think in a very structured manner, so that you develop the ability to differentiate between objective thinking and imagination. But while you are at it, because it is an area that gets asked in a lot of exams, Venn diagrams and all are very useful for us, why not do a good job of it? So my recommendation is that you give 2 to 3 weeks to syllogisms. So in these 2 to 3 weeks, go through the basic concepts, then practice the easy questions first, eventually taking yourself at a level where you can take on even some of the most complicated questions. So when I say 2 to 3 weeks, that's practically the rest of the April. So when it comes to April, one of the things that you'd focus on is syllogisms. After that, go through logical connectives or logical consistency. A lot of people think of it as a sub part of syllogisms. So you would like to devote 1 week to it. And then comes the money area, the area which is really very important, and that's critical reasoning. Now, why am I calling it very important? Now, you know that we had 16 RC questions in CAT 21 and 22. If you analyze the paper closely, you'd realize that out of these 16, 11 questions were reasoning based, which basically means that if you are not good at critical reasoning, your accuracy rate in these 11 questions is not going to be high. You would struggle when it comes to these 11 questions. So imagine focusing on just one area which contributes almost half of the entire section, or 40% of the entire section. You realize when we look at quant, we notice that arithmetic is a similar area. We start from there because arithmetic will contribute a very healthy chunk to the exam. In fact, critical reasoning's contribution is even bigger. And therefore, this is absolutely one area that you want to focus on. So that is another 3 to 4 weeks. So it practically means that when I talk about your English prep, these 2 months, April and May, or maybe the first week of June, should be devoted to these 3 areas. Now the next concern could be, sir, where do I study these from? So first up, you've not studied these areas formally, so you need to work with a teacher or a book. If you join BYJU'S Exam Prep, we of course take care of all of these things and you won't have to worry. But in case you are somebody who is self-preparing, preparing on your own, then I'd recommend pick up any book and go through these 3 things. For practice, syllogisms and logical connective questions, you can look at the previous year papers. This is an area which also gets tested in a lot of other exams. So you can look at exams like SSC or Bank PO, and quite a few of their material, quite a few of the practice questions are available on various websites, including BYJU'S Exam Prep website. You can go there and start attempting these questions. And for critical reasoning, if you're not working with us yet, this is an area which contributes a lot to this exam called GMAT, right? And an exam called LSAT. GMAT and LSAT. So both of these exams get a lot of CR questions. So if you want practice material, you can perhaps look at those websites that have this material, but make sure that you do go through around, if not more, just aim at going through around 200 questions, where your primary focus should be on these 4 question types: assumption-based questions, questions that test your inference, so inference-based questions, and then questions that focus on strengthening the argument and weakening the argument. So these are the 4 things that you would like to focus on. So once you become really comfortable with these, so that's around 7 to 8 weeks of effort, then focus your attention on verbal ability, where the very first question that I want you to pick up is paragraph summary. So in the CAT exam, we get this question type where the examiner gives us a paragraph. The paragraph is followed by 4 answer choices, and our job is to pick up the best summary of that paragraph among or from the 4 options that are given to us. Now, if I look at it from a strict academic perspective, they're not summary questions. Now, why am I saying that they're not strictly summary questions? Summary basically means writing down all the key points of a paragraph. But over the years, when we analyze the questions that we find in the CAT, we notice that they do not ask us for the summary. They actually ask us for the main idea or the key idea of the paragraphs. It's mostly about developing that ability to figure out the key idea. Now, why do I want you to start with paragraph summary questions? Now see, even in reading comprehension, we suggest that when you read the passage, you generate a mental overview. And mental overview requires this ability where you look at a paragraph and take out the gist. So paragraph summary questions, in a way, train you for that ability too. And therefore, it's a great idea to start with paragraph summary questions. So devote 3 weeks to it. And in 3 weeks, once you know the basics, you would like to go through questions every day. When I say every day, I'm saying that, okay, attempt 5 to 10 questions every day. And hopefully at the end of these 3 weeks, you should have 80% accuracy. In case you do not have that 80% accuracy, you should still reach that 70% accuracy level. So that 70% accuracy is like the minimum threshold that we need to reach. In case you realize that you haven't reached that 70% accuracy yet, even after spending 3 weeks, continue it for longer. So you definitely need to reach 70% accuracy, preferably 80%, after which you can move over to the next area. Usually you should reach there in around 3 weeks. And in case you're struggling a lot, in case your accuracy rate is below 50%, then you know that you need to work with an expert in order to get a greater accuracy, in order to roll out an exact plan to take care of it. So once you're done with paragraph summary, pick up para jumbles. Once again, the exact same thing. Devote 3 weeks, 5 to 10 questions a day. You can look at the previous year question papers. You can look at a lot of practice material. We have that available on our website. We also offer you quite a few practice questions on our app, so you can go through those. So make sure that you stick to it. And once you are done with these two things, then you move over to paragraph odd one out, another 3 weeks. And then finally, this new question variety called paragraph completion, right? So now if you look at it holistically, if you were to start today, you would have covered all the 3 agenda items of verbal reasoning along with these 4 agenda items of verbal ability by 15th of August. So by 15th of August, when it comes to these 7 areas, you should have reached at least a 70% accuracy. So 15th of August onwards, you will simply move towards making yourself faster and even more accurate. And how do you do that? You do that by analyzing your performance in the various mocks that you write. So write a mock, look at your mistakes. If you've made a mistake in any of those areas, analyze it, review it, figure out what went wrong. Was there a clue that you could not spot? Was there a structure that you could not identify? Learn to spot those things further. Work on those specific areas, and you'd see your accuracy inching up. You'd also see yourself becoming faster and faster. Okay, and that after 15th of August, you'd need to write a lot of section tests, a lot of mock tests, and then work on your specific challenges after the review, after the analysis of those areas. And within this duration, alongside these 7 things, let us also add RC to the mix. So what is it that I want you to do for reading comprehension? First up, starting today, please make sure that you attempt 10 RC passages every week. Okay, so from Monday to Saturday, you will attempt 1 passage every day. And on Sunday, you will sit down and go through 4 passages in one go. So it is not that you take breaks. No, 4 passages and you'd sit down and solve all the 4 passages. Okay. Now, some of you may think that just 10 RC passages every week. Yes, to begin with, that's exactly where I want you to start. But this is a number that should increase after the month of May. So for the next 7 weeks, stick to it. After that, we are going to increase this number. Okay, so instead of 10, you'd like to attempt 12 to 15 RC passages, eventually taking the number up to around 17 to 20, right? But then there is one extra thing that I want you to do. When you attempt these passages, there are going to be some questions that you could not attempt. There are going to be some questions that you got wrong. So keep an eye on those mistakes. So whenever you get any question wrong, think of what went wrong. Was it that you lost your focus? Was it that you do not know what the question really asked? Or is it that you do not have the ability to answer those questions? So basically, when I think of reading comprehension, I think of it as 20 question types. Okay, I think of it as 20 question types. So identify a trend, a pattern in your mistakes. If you see that you're making a lot of mistakes in some of those question types very consistently, it is a clear indicator that we either do not understand that question or we lack the ability to get that question right. So you would want to roll out a plan that helps you acquire that ability. And here, the question type that I want you to specifically focus on at the beginning is main idea questions. And once you are done with critical reasoning, by then you would have sorted out main idea questions. I would want you to then start focusing on the reasoning based questions. So these two, because these two areas are the areas that get asked very frequently or are in some other ways going to be very useful for us during the course of the exam. So that's about passages. Now, another realization that you may have is that you are a little rusty. When you read, you do not feel entirely comfortable. So how do we take off all that rust? How do we dust it all off? You do that by reading a lot. So what do I mean by reading a lot? I want you to read for 25 minutes every day. So what do you read? You can read long form articles, right? So you can read these from websites like the New York Times, the Smithsonian, okay, the Guardian, and of course, Eon essays, right? And additionally, I would also really appreciate if you start reading books. So every day, you need to put in 25 minutes of reading. And then so you should continue this until the end of May. So this is something that you'd keep on doing throughout. Another thing that I want you to keep doing throughout is analysis. And after that analysis, you may move over to these advanced areas. So if you realize that your reading speed is slow, you can work on reading speed. If you realize that you're making a lot of mistakes in main idea questions, suitable title questions, you know that you need to work on your retention. And in case your accuracy rate is low in comprehension based questions, you would also like to introduce an activity or two that specifically focuses on enhancing your comprehension levels. So special work on these three areas if needed, if required. If you think that is what is holding you back, please make sure that you do it. And then there are some more things that I expect you to do every day. So what are those things? So until your exams, I want you to go through grammar, vocabulary and writing, preferably every day. So let's dig deeper into vocabulary. What is it that I want you to do? So it's a very vast area, therefore it makes sense to do it every day. So take out just 20 minutes. In these 20 minutes, your goal is to learn new words using any tool or technique that you are aware of. In case you are not aware of any tool or technique, here are some of those. You can use a word list. You can use a root word approach. Remember word power made easy? Or you can use any other association based method. Okay, you can learn words in groups. You can learn to use with auditory clues, any method that you know of, any method that you think would work, right? And in order to get more information, I keep on taking these vocab strategy sessions as well, where we dig deeper. You can go through those. You'd probably find some of those on this channel itself, so you can look those up. And then for grammar, the plan is again very simple, very straightforward. Pick up any basic book of grammar. For instance, when I was in school, I was taught Wren and Martin. So if I were you, I'd probably pick up Wren and Martin. If you have any other book, you can use that. But you're supposed to read this book twice at the rate of 7 pages a day. What this means is that you should be able to finish this job in the next 100 days. So April, May, June, part of July. So roughly 15th of July is the date by which you should be through with these two things. And after that, you should move towards practice. Make sure that you write your grammar quizzes regularly. And the reason for this is that it of course helps you indirectly in your CAT exam. But then all the other exam that you plan to write, all the other exam, okay, you talk about NMAT, you talk about IIFT, you talk about SNAP, ZAT. The last exam that I wrote was Maharashtra CET, and this exam had 12 grammar based questions. So imagine. So all the other exams are going to test you on grammar, and therefore it makes a lot of sense to begin it today, so that you're not caught at sea, so that you're not really caught unprepared or underprepared. And then do not forget to write a bit every day. See, even if you're taking out just 5 to 7 minutes for writing, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, that suffices. Write on anything, whatever you fancy. It need not be something really big or huge or essay kinds, okay? Just write whatever you can on. Just take out the 7-10 minutes, and that will help you immensely with all the paragraph based questions. So that's basically what I expect you to do. And if you roll out this plan, well and good. If you do not roll it out, it is then that you would have a problem, because if you change nothing, nothing changes. You want to change your score, you want to change your percentile, you want to change your accuracy, you need to start implementing, start executing the plan that I have shared with you today. So if you need more practice, you realize you can practice with us. From tomorrow, we are starting this series of 500 most expected CAT questions. In fact, I'd meet you once again at 12 o'clock, where we'd sit down and go through some of the VARC questions, and you can benefit from that. If you want even more practice, download and install BYJU'S Exam Prep app. I'm sure most of you have already done so. If you have not, download it, and you'd notice that every day we give you a section-wise quiz, even more practice. And if you need a more holistic guidance for getting a 99 percentile plus, please register for this session that will happen on 8th of April. And you want to be one of these? Join us. We have started our CAT 23 batches. It's one of the most thorough, most exhaustive, most comprehensive program, which has tons of features. I mean, if I start reading all of this out, if I start telling you about the program, I'd probably end up taking 10 minutes. So I leave you to read it. In order to make it easier for you to join us, we also have our scholarship test happening on 15th of April. You attempt that, and you stand to get up to 90% off on our list price. So make sure that you do sit for the scholarship test and make the most of this opportunity that has come your way. So if you have any more questions, don't hesitate in dropping them down below, or we are wherever you are. So follow us on Instagram, Facebook, join a Telegram group, and you can definitely reach out to us there. So I had a wonderful time interacting with you. If you think that the session is useful, it helped you, benefited you, don't forget to give it a like, and do share and subscribe. Press the bell icon so that you do not miss out on any of these sessions that we conduct for you. Right? So until I see you next, stay safe, stay focused, stay in touch. And now you have the plan. The only thing that you need to do is get going. Okay, no excuses. If you're stuck anywhere, do reach out to me and I'll help you get unstuck. Have a nice day. Until I see you next.